Welcome to Visual Schedules for GPE, in person or virtual. My name is Shawn with Northside Adaptive PE.
And I am Angie Cranham, also with Northside Adaptive PE. The purpose of this presentation is to give you visual schedules to use in general PE and also schedules to use in a virtual learning setting.
As early as 2010, there was a district-wide conflict between the PE teachers and the instructional assistants or paraprofessionals. The conflict was that they weren't sure who was supposed to provide accommodations or who was providing the instruction for those students that are attending GPE. So the support staff was struggling a bit, and the GPE teachers were frustrated. So we began as adaptive PE teachers to look at the breakdown, what was going on at the campus level. In 2012, we created a training video that helped train all staff from GPE teachers down to the instructional assistants or paraprofessionals and any other staff that attended PE with those students so that they would have an understanding of what needed to be implemented in order for those students to be successful. So this seemed to help. However, something was still missing, right? So the following year, then we tried to follow up and do many training sessions. And each campus had specific needs per, individual student. So we wanted to talk about those students and what the needs were. And looking at this closer, we were finding that the students were giving supports in the small setting in the classroom, and these same supports were not given in the large group setting. In the classroom, the teachers were using visual schedules to communicate their expectations, task requests, etc., and or to move throughout their daily routine. So it gave students a clear understanding of exactly what they needed to do from task to task before they received a reward or choice, etc. So students were often redirected using their visual schedules, and it helped reduce behaviors and increase their work completion. So we know when students are in a small group setting where the supports are given, they thrive. So it didn't make sense to us why this support wasn't given as they go into their specials and discovery time or electives. So we know that the students in the large group setting tend to be frustrated, and we all know what that looks like. And so getting the staff to understand what is frustration, what is sensory overload, and how do we go about helping the student and understanding what they're trying to communicate. So when we looked at this from this perspective, we understood that we needed to provide some additional communication and possibly schedules within the large group setting. So we first had to train the instructional assistants to be able to recognize this, and then we went through the training with them, and then also provided a break area so that the students would be able to participate, move to a break area, and then go back into the participation. And the student, we used a couple of different schools and worked with the more difficult students that needed these supports first to see how it would work. And so looking at visual schedules, I created a couple of visual schedules that I thought might work and implemented it with a student that presented with drop behavior, very floppy. He would lean against you if you were behind him. He would drop to the floor. He was just communicating that he was maybe having some sensory overload issues, and also that he didn't understand what the expectations were. But when you find that reward item, that motivator, and then communicate using the visual schedules, you're able to get some task completion done. And so this student had to also have the buy-in of the instructional assistant that was going to implement the strategies. And so taking her in and saying, look, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and her buy-in was that it was going to be an easier process of getting him to PE. And the student began to thrive using this strategy. I use a manila folder. We put the visuals from the classroom. We put pictures on the wall designating a break area, and communicated with the teachers what we were doing. And surprisingly, with consistent effort, the student began to, instead of destroying equipment and laying all over the floor and tearing up the equipment, he began to understand his routine and expectations. And you saw confidence building in the student. And that made him be able to begin to start completing warm-ups, but then eventually he began doing more activities. This is him participating alongside his peers, doing an activity. And a year prior, this was something that wasn't being done. He was able to go do the activity that was modeled by his peers that is right next to him. And he's already looking for his communication chart, his task schedule. And at this time, he was receiving a goldfish for his reward, but that was because that's the reward in the classroom, when we easily faded that out. So now he does his task and he goes straight to his break area and picks his reward, and then gets a minute in the break area with that reward before he goes back to task. That was big. We actually changed what PE looked like for that student. And so when I saw how amazing that was, I thought, I gotta have help with this. This is a big thing. We need to spread it out. So I asked Angie, after 4 years, to help me with the organization of this project. And she implemented the schedules at her campuses as well, and saw that it was actually very effective. And then she, brought up that we should be talking with other specialists to make sure we're not stepping on any toes and we're not teaching something that's not accurate. So we actually met with behavior specialists, assistive technology, speech pathologists, just to make sure that what we were asking the students and how they were moving the tokens, that was appropriate. And
okay,
sorry, go ahead.
So what we found was that we needed to look at activities versus task completion schedules. They recommended no more than 3 or 4 tasks before a reward, and to make sure that the rewards went from left to right and top to bottom, just like they would in reading and other things that they did in the classroom academically. They wanted the first then on the opposite side, because if not, then it was a little too cluttered and they didn't want to confuse the students. And then they brought up the pictures. The size, we kind of worked together and collaborated down to 1.5 pictures. That's how, 1.5 size, sorry, so that you could fit it all on one page. But they looked at using board maker versus real pictures, and it came down to it was dependent on the student. So this is what we came up with all together. This is what a sample schedule would look like. On one side, you have the first then. This is the reward that they would have picked. And on this side, you have the activities they're going to complete with the tokens that will be moved up as they complete each skill. And once they've gotten all 4 tokens, they get their reward. Now, this little cute boy over here would normally be a real picture to represent the child, because if you have more than one student going at a time, you need to be able to make sure you can distinguish who completed which activities. Now, the fun thing about these schedules is they can be used in a lot of different ways. So this schedule can also be used instead of tokens, because not every student uses smiley faces or Peppa Pigs or Uma from the Descendants. They just like to move the token over themselves. So as they finish the activity, you just move it on over. And once they've completed all 4 activities, again, they get their reward. So here is just what the blank ones look like. Again, this one has numbers, this one doesn't, and it's just a preference. And then we did make a 3 activity one also. Now for the task completion schedule, these are for those kids that need a little bit more frequent rewards. So we created the task at the top, and then you have your tokens on the bottom. And as they shoot the basketball 1 time, they get their token moved up. And after they shoot it 4 times, they get their quick break. Now you can use this same schedule 3 or 4 times in the class. You just, while they're getting the reward, you just change the task at the top and start over again. And again, this same schedule can be used without tokens, and you just put the task you want them to complete and you just move it over. So they get the reward when they have finished. And here is a blank one with the numbers, a blank one without, and then of course with 3. And these little squares here are just to show you where the Velcro would go on after you've laminated it. And then the first then, which we all have seen first then, we just wanted to show you that we double-sided it again, put the Velcro on the back. That way, while they're getting their quick reward, you can switch the pictures out easily without having to reach into your pocket and hope they don't fall all over the floor or that you've lost it along the way. So here's the blank one of those. And then for your higher kiddos that don't necessarily need a picture of what they're going to be doing, what they're working for, they've picked their reward and they get check marks or any token you want to use as they complete their tasks. And this is just a stretching schedule that we have. So if you noticed on the first one that I showed you, the first activity was warm-ups, but warm-ups kind of entails a lot of different activities. So you could put each warm-up as an activity for those kiddos that really need that. Or separately, we just have different, whatever stretches they're going to be doing in that particular class. And as they finish it, they move it over. Once they've completed all their warm-ups, you go back to their individual schedule and give them their token for completing warm-ups. And here is all of our pictures so far. We started with 1 page of pictures. You will notice that some pictures have words and some don't. I am adding constantly to this list. It depends on what they're doing in PE. I might ask the kids to turn their head away and take a quick picture to add. And some of these pictures are pretty involved. So sometimes if it gets too difficult for the kiddo to understand, you could just maybe put a picture of a Bozu or a picture of an exercise ball, just the picture of the piece of equipment that they're going to be using instead of the actual task. And a lot of times these pictures will not mean anything to the child in the beginning, but as you use them and they're looking at that picture over and over, they will begin to understand what is being requested of them. You see some blanks because I had my kiddos' pictures up there that I had to take off. And then these pictures here were just added last week. So it is an ever-growing process that we have. And here's a little video for you guys about our notebooks.
Okay, so what we started with was just a simple 1-inch binder. And inside we gave them a copy of each type of schedule that they could use, experimenting with the kiddos to see which schedule would work with them. Then we gave them an inventory. So in the inventory, they have 1 picture of everything that we had created at that time. So here's all of the reward options, and then it goes into stretching and fitness and there's sports. So
And it's cycling. That's awesome.
we just kind of gave them, like I said, 1 picture for them to pull and to work with. So as they started using it and it started growing, the binders got bigger. So here is my current binder, which is a 1.5-inch binder. You can see it is overflowing. Last year, the school had 2 kiddos at a time going to PE with their different grades, but currently with the way things are, there are 6 going at a time. So they now have in here, and this is a work in progress, they have their stretching, and then they each have their schedule. And you'll see that some of them are 4-step and some of them are 3-step. I don't have their pictures up here for privacy reasons, but the pictures would be there so that because there are so many, the teachers could keep track of who had done which activity. Then their rewards, what they chose from, and of course they would put it on what they were working for on the basket. Now this one, I just started this page for adding more pictures to it, but currently they have 2 of everything. And that's because that's what it was from last year. We are working on it since it's just 2, but you can see there's 8 tabs here and there were 6 in the original. It is, like I said, growing. So since they have so many, what we can pull from is what I have in my little library of tools, and this is my picture organizer. Okay, and I'm going to bring it closer. You can see I have done it by sports. I also have fitness and stretching and rewards and bone whatever it might be that I could pull from. And it's categorized the way I like it categorized. Obviously, you could just do it by manipulative and locomotor or however would work for you. So that is what we have.
All right, and here is a picture, a clearer picture of what my organizer looks like and how I have it currently. I'm probably going to add, honestly, a second container because there are so many more pictures to be added.
So we had that all set up, and then what happened next? Well, COVID happened. And so in the break, we're all in a little panic mode and trying to figure out, oh, how do we do this? And still, the biggest issue was communication for us. And so in communicating, we had to, you know, verbally tell parents how to prompt their student while we're trying to teach, right? And then the student is now doesn't have those clear expectations of what class looks like, when are they going to be finished, etc. So we began to think, okay, we've got to do this in a virtual way, but we had to get parent buy-in as well. So we had, when we were hoped that something that was familiar, which is what we were working on in the gym or in APE, could transfer over into a virtual setting. So in speaking with Angie, we knew we had to come up with some type of virtual schedule for task completion. And again, it was a game changer, and that's why we're bringing it to you.
All right, so my first example is stealing Shawn's background, adapted PE, let them know what we're starting with, get them settled, and then show them their schedule. Now, of course, the first then is on the same page just because of the way virtual works. It's just easier for them to see it all at once, and our schedule of what we're going to be doing. So first we're going to start with stretching. We go, we do our stretches, we do each one. And then after we do our 2, 3, 4, whatever it happens to be, oops, 5 on this one, is they get their happy face. And then we go to the next skill. And here I have the videos embedded into the slideshow. So you would do the activity. This happens to be beanbag balance, okay? And then you go to the next slide, and there they go, they get their happy face for it. And it would just continue. The next one, this is what you're doing, you're walking on the line, get your happy face. And the last one, no, we didn't use pool noodles. We did use towels or rugs, or sometimes just tape. And after they get all 4, which they're excited about, they get their, you're awesome, you did a good job, and that's the end of the lesson. My second example is kind of the same, but what it does is, so we start here, we do our warm-ups, same thing, sorry, taking you through all of our stretches. They get their happy face. Now this time, instead of going to the next slide, what we've done is we've embedded the link into the pictures. Now the only problem with that is it takes you out of the slideshow. So here we go. It takes us over here. We would make it big. Good. They watch the video, pause it. You have to go back out. And then you click, and there's their happy face. And you would do the same thing. Click on this link, go back out. Whoops. And then happy face, and so forth. And again, once they get all 4, you go to the next slide, and good job. So it's really just dependent on if you want to go outside of the slideshow or if you want to stay inside. It is a few less copying and pasting when you do the links inside the pictures. If not, you have 5 or 6 of the schedule copies that you have to just change all the pictures for every time.
So in my example is very similar. I like to keep a consistent background for the students to recognize. We kind of go through the same verbiage in the beginning. We walk through first, we're going to warm up, then we're going to exercise. I then will go out of present mode and ask the student what they want to work for. I give remote control access, and then they would basically move the star themselves. And I put warm up 1, 2, 3, so they know we're going to do 3 exercises, 3 warm up exercises before they get that first check mark. The star represents their choice on this one. This is for a student that may just need some redirection visually, not necessarily a more intense card. The first then card and the I'm working for card are smaller cards, easier to handle. Then we go into exercise. They get their next check mark, and all the way through the activity, pausing so that they can have ample practice time, and then they get their check mark. The neat thing about this is a student really loves to come back to the screen after doing their exercise, and they get that visual feedback. And then we all celebrate, yay, double thumbs up or something when they're finished. They look for that, and then it's an exciting visual feature. This is another one that's similar, but again, they get to select their reward, and you can design that specific to what students enjoy. But I put independent activities so they can start getting that verbiage in their mind for even scooter play or whatever activity they want. And then this one shows the tokens or the reward after they do their exercises will then go into the schedule so they get that happy face. And I'll tell them before I hit the button, come look at the screen, hurry, did you do your work? And then they'll come to the screen. It's kind of a motivator just to get them to see that happy face coming in. And so we go through our lesson. I'm not going to bore you with seeing everything, but we go all the way down the line until we get to the finish. And again, we put these visuals for modeling as well. And the parents have seemed to really enjoy it so that they understand what we're asking. And we always have that music component in it. And then boom, they're finished. They got all their smiley faces, and we cheer for each other, give double thumbs up, and we're finished. So again, not everyone will have a smiley face. We may use different templates. It's all designed specific to that student and what motivates that student, and just getting the buy-in of whoever you're working with, whether it be parent or instructional staff. So if you would like a copy of our templates, we'd be happy to share them. You can email either one of us, or you can click the screen right now and you will be able to access the templates. If it doesn't work for you, just email us. And we did allude to the fact that we made a training video way back in 2012. It still has some great information on it. If you don't have access to it, you can click the screen at this time and get access to that training video as well. Questions?